Hello and welcome back to my channel. I am so excited for today's interview with Jenna Moreci, who is a best-selling author of The Savior's Champion and The Savior's Sister, a dark fantasy series. And her newest book, a nonfiction writing book for authors, Shut Up and Write the Book, is now available wide. Shut Up and Write the Book is a step-by-step guide to crafting a novel from your first spark of an idea to the final edit. Whether you're brand new to writing or wanting to hone your skills, this action plan provides straightforward advice while demystifying the art of storytelling. Jenna has so much great advice for you today. I cannot wait for you to check out the interview. So here we go. So what inspired you to write Shut Up and Write the Book and share your knowledge with other authors in a different space other than YouTube?
So honestly, my main inspiration was my audience. They had been asking for a book like this for a long time, and I'd just been so busy with so many other projects and being a caregiver that I was, never really able to make it a priority. And then in 2022, I was just like, I'm going to do it. Okay, we're finally going to put it out there. And then another big source of inspiration is I try to live my life by be the person you needed when you were younger. And when I was writing my debut novel like a decade ago, I didn't have writer friends. I was doing it completely by myself. I didn't have a ton of support except for my partner, Clifford, who's wonderful and very supportive, but he's not a writer. So he couldn't offer any help or guidance. So I was just researching everything. I was learning everything online, going to the library, and it would have been so much easier if I had some kind of step-by-step guide or some kind of mentorship available. So that's what Shut Up and Write the Book is supposed to be. It's supposed to be for people who, maybe don't know what they're doing, or whatever they have been doing hasn't been working for them. It's just supposed to make the process a little bit easier for them.
Yeah, so it definitely has your brand all over it with the title, and I absolutely love the cover, and I'm so excited for this to finally be out because I think it's so fun. And I think you'll definitely find another audience to join in your cyborg army, definitely. How do you hope this book specifically will benefit writers?
My number one goal is to lessen the overwhelm. I think that writing a book is extremely overwhelming. And I think when you go into it, it's overwhelming. But the further you get in the process, you realize, oh, this is 10 times more overwhelming than I thought it would be, because you realize there are so many steps involved that you hadn't even considered before. And so you're overwhelmed from the start. And then once you get to the middle, you're even more overwhelmed. So my goal is to sort of lay it out from the beginning, like this is what to expect, and it's okay. It may seem scary, but I got you. I got your back. We're going to make it as easy and simplified as possible. And I wanted to achieve that by giving a roadmap. I said it's a step-by-step guide. So I'm literally breaking it down from step 1, get an idea. Step 2, create a premise. Step 3, figure out the structure of your story. For me, I'm the kind of person where I like to look at the process kind of like a ladder, and you're taking it one step at a time. I'm trying to get other writers to focus on their writing journey that way as well. And ultimately, I just don't want it to be such a daunting process. I want them to feel like it's okay because I know what's coming next. The book says what's coming next. I know what's coming next after that. And one thing I like to reiterate throughout Shut Up and Write the Book is a lot of people feel the need to be perfect every step of the way. And I'm constantly repeating, if your outline is bad, or if your outline doesn't have everything figured out, or if you deviate from it, that's okay. Everything's modifiable. There's a delete button. If your first draft is bad, that's what it's there for. It's not there to be perfect. You can fix it in the editing phase. So I'm hoping that people will read this and feel some sense of confidence and relief going into what can be an extremely overwhelming process.
How's the process with this book specifically? You take them from idea to like actual book? Like how far do you go in this book specifically?
I cover basically every step of the writing process up until the point where this manuscript is done. So I don't cover marketing and publishing because if I did, this would be a 1,000 page book. I do plan to cover marketing and publishing in the future, but I literally start with the idea phase. Especially, I have a whole chapter devoted to a lot of times people want to write a book, but they don't know what they want to write. So I cover different ways to inspire your creativity, or on the flip side, there are some writers who have so many ideas and they're not sure which ones they want to tackle in their first book. So I also cover ways to narrow down your ideas, both from looking at it from a viewpoint of what are you passionate about, as well as what's a smart business decision, what's going to sell better. So maybe you have two really great ideas that you're equally passionate about, but one is a bit more marketable right now. Well, maybe you should start that idea first. So I literally start from the most basic part of the writing process and cover all the way through the professional edits, all the way through the developmental editor, line editor, copy editor, proofreader. And then even after that, after you go through that step, there's that feeling of, is my book done? Can I stop working on it? Can I stop tinkering with it? And I have a whole chapter devoted to whether or not you can determine if this book is finally done and ready to, start publishing and marketing. So I try to leave no stone unturned in terms of the writing process itself.
Yeah, that's a lot. And I think that's such an awesome resource for a lot of writers, especially those who follow you, because I have a feeling that, your sarcasm and humor is all throughout this book, which is great. Because I enjoy your channel and so many other people do as well. So I'm really excited for this one. So how did you approach? This is your first nonfiction book. So how did you approach writing this book versus your fiction novels?
Honestly, it was very similar to writing fiction. There's an outline, there's drafting, there's self-editing, and then there's the professional editing. So it's very similar in that way. I think the biggest difference is that there's no storytelling structure. And that's something that is so important when you're writing fiction, is figuring out like the inciting incident, the rising action, the climax, resolution. We don't really have to worry about that. For me, it was more about getting the steps of the writing process in chronological order, and more so focusing on my personal voice as a creator rather than my storytelling and narrative voice. So in some ways it's easier to write because I'm writing not necessarily the way that I speak, but I'm just writing as Jenna. I'm not writing as the narrator, the narrator of the Saviors series. I'm writing just as Jenna, and I'm writing as if I were explaining this to other writers. This is how I would just naturally, explain these steps of the writing process in a simplified manner.
That's great. So how do you think Shut Up and Write the Book sets itself apart from others in the nonfiction for writers genre?
Well, I think it sets itself apart in a few ways. The first one is I've seen quite a few writing craft books where, you go through them and they're wonderful to read, but they feel more like motivational books, like you can do it, write the book. And obviously I'm trying to motivate people and shut up and write the book, but I want more than that. Like if I'm picking up a writing craft book, I don't just want motivation. I'm obviously motivated if I got a writing craft book. I got the book so I could learn and so I could get help. I want more than a cheerleader. So I have seen a lot of writing craft books that I was reading and I was like, okay, but where's the advice? Like I came to you because I want to know about filter words and I want to know about adverbs. Like help me, help me write this book. So for me, I really wanted it to be more than just, a pat on the back or a cheer squad. And I do want those elements in there, but that's not the focal point. Also, a lot of writing craft books I've read sort of overcomplicate the process. I think, we're writers and we love our flowery language and we love to write. That's what we do. But for me, when I'm learning something, I want to cut through the crap. I want straightforward advice. I want you to get to the point. And I want it to be as easy and simplified as possible so that I can understand it and then build on top of it, and tweak as I may need to tweak. So that's what I look for in writing craft books. And I read some great writing craft books before, but I do feel like a lot are either mostly motivational or memoir based, or they're very flowery and overcomplicated. For me, I wanted Shut Up and Write the Book to be like, okay, let's get to the point. This is the straightforward, no BS, way to go. And you can tweak it. I'm constantly saying throughout the book, you can tweak these steps however best suits your writing process. It's whatever works best for you. But these are the bare bones. This is the structure that you need in order to write this book, because that's what I look for in writing craft books.
Yeah, I'm always the type of person, I'll read a ton of them, but I keep the ones that are like, this is how you do it. And those are the ones I come back to. So that's great that you made that a resource for other writers. What is the biggest challenge that you faced when writing and publishing this book, and how did you overcome it?
Honestly, the biggest challenge was just time management. Life made writing hard. This was a 2022 writing project, and I'm probably not the only one who can say 2022 sucked. It was a hard year for a lot of people. For me, my partner ended up in the hospital twice, and both times were very serious situations. And he was in the hospital both times for a month each. Well, I think the second time was like 2 weeks, but the first time was a month. The point is, it was just chaos and craziness. So honestly, it was trying to get this book out in a timely manner, but also having like your house on fire around you, and you're just that little dog in the GIF going, "It's fine, everything's fine." So yeah, it was just time management, but I think that's something a lot of writers can relate to, because 2022 has been kind of hard on everyone, but a lot of writers I know have found it especially difficult. There's been an economic crisis. It's just been wild. So honestly, I give props to anyone who was able to create anything last year, because that was a wild ride.
Yeah, for sure. Last year was more editing for me in publishing than it was actually writing. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Those tasks are easy enough to check off sometimes when the world is not great. In your opinion, what is the most common mistake that writers make in their craft, and how can they fix it?
The first mistake that I see all the time, and it's one that a lot of people never think about, is a lot of newbie writers do not understand story structure. And I remember back when I used to offer critiques like widely to my audience, that was a mistake that I saw in like 75% of the manuscripts sent my way. People have no understanding of story structure. They have no understanding of the fact that there's an inciting incident, a rising action, a climax, a falling action, and a resolution. Instead, they're writing a series of events, that possibly occur in a chronological order, but they're just a series of unrelated events. And what I'd see a lot of is there being an inciting incident, no action, just a bunch of events, a climax, and a resolution. And that's not what makes up a story. You need to have that rising action. And that's something that I cover in extensive detail in Shut Up and Write the Book. And I do it right at the start. I think it's like chapter 2 or 3. Because it's so important. And I think a lot of people get overwhelmed at the idea of story structure because they see templates like the hero's journey, which has like 12 different, beats. Not all structures need to be that detailed. It's about researching different story structures. Like the 3-act structures is just, broken down into 3 acts. It's about researching the different structures and finding the one that kind of works best for you. But ultimately, every single structure is going to follow the same pyramid of inciting incident, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. If you don't have a structure to your fiction story, it's not a story. It's just going to come across as a series of events. A lot of it is going to feel like filler, and your reader's probably not going to continue reading the book because they're going to feel like, why am I reading this? Nothing's going on. Another huge mistake that I see is not following the proper editing steps. This is both in the self-editing process as well as the professional editing. With self-editing, ultimately, you can do whatever process works for you. There's not one way to do it, but I do break down and Shut Up and Write the Book a very useful method for self-editing, and one that's more common among writers, which is to start with the developmental edits, which are basically the big picture edits, like story beats and plot points and characters, the things that make up the bulk of your content, and then working your way down to more minute edits like, the flow, the paragraph structure, grammar, syntax, punctuation. And then when you move to the professional edit, that's how the edits work as well. You usually start with a developmental editor, then you move to a line editor, a copy editor, and a proofreader. Sometimes people hear that and get super worried and think they have to hire 4 different editors. That's usually not the case. Usually a lot of editors will tackle more than one edit in a particular package. So for example, you could have a developmental editor who also does line edits, or a copy editor who also does line edits, things like that. So you're not going to need more than one editor, but it is really, really important if you're writing a book to have the proper editing steps, because it's not going to feel like a finished book if it's still wonky and there's still mistakes in there. And the number one issue that I see that's, I guess, the most widespread among newbie authors specifically is not having any follow through. I can't tell you how many writers I've met who start their manuscript and never get past maybe chapter 5, or they finish the rough draft and then leave it in a drawer forever and never tackle it. And it's usually because of overwhelm. I mean, it's overwhelming. You start it, you're very excited about it, and then you get overwhelmed. You get to chapter 5 and you're like, oh no, now I have writer's block. What do I do? Or you finish the rough draft and you realize it is awful. It has so many mistakes. And so that's something I cover in Shut Up and Write the Book. And that for me, it's the overwhelm. It's about decreasing that feeling and being like, relax. It's okay to get writer's block. Here's how we deal with it. Or relax. It's okay if your rough draft is bad. Here's how we fix it.
Yeah, perfectionism early on. I mean, I went through it when I started writing, but it's the people who really push through are the ones that are able to to write a lot more, because it's hard.
When I write, I will be writing, like if I'm writing the first draft, I will be writing knowing like, oh my gosh, it's just pure garbage pouring out of my fingertips right now. And I just grit my teeth and just keep going, just get the garbage on the page. And I promise, and I say this in the book, I promise, just don't read it, just get it on there. And then maybe the next day read it. And it's almost never as bad as I thought it was. It's not good, but it's almost never as bad as I was thinking while I was writing it. And then the next day, you see the mistakes and you can fix them. It's not as bad as it feels in the moment.
Yeah, and sometimes too, the idea of publishing when you're in that idea stage, in the first draft stage, just is so overwhelming that you're like, I need to do it perfect, but definitely not. Definitely not.
Yeah, it's perfection is a myth. Especially the first draft. You just got to get that out of your head. You just need to accept that the first draft is going to be bad, because no first draft is perfect.
Right. Exactly. Can you recommend any other writing craft books or resources that you found helpful in your own writing journey?
Well, if I'm going to talk about resources, I mean, I know your books aren't necessarily writing craft books. They're more the writing business and industry, but I'm still going to be here cheerleading, everyone go buy Katlyn's books. They're so good. In terms of writing craft books, I mean, I obviously got to mention Sacha Black, especially in terms of characters. I really loved The Anatomy of Prose. She's got a wealth of information available. In terms of resources that help along the way, that aren't necessarily writing craft books. It's something I mentioned in Shut Up and Write the Book. I really do like a pro writing aid in terms of helping with your grammar. It's not going to catch every single mistake, but it is going to give you an overview of what you're doing wrong and how to fix it. I also really like Milanote for organizing ideas. It works like a studio wall, and you just kind of tag your little posts or notes everywhere. And then you can, create a structure or an outline or a vision board. And so those are resources that I personally like to use for my own writing process.
So how do you think writers can continue to hone their craft just beyond writing craft books?
The best way to hone your craft is practice. I know a lot of writers who they'll be like, I'm taking time off to read for the next 2 years. And that's the next best thing you can do, is read books, especially within your genre. Although I would say read all kinds of genres, but reading at the very least within your genre is a very, very great asset to you. But the single best asset is practice. Just write. I mean, even if you're just journaling, just write something, because the more you write, the more you will make mistakes. The more you make mistakes, the more you will learn from those mistakes. And especially the more you write, you will start to hone and create your voice. A lot of writers will ask me, how do I develop my writing voice? It's just something that happens over time. You just have to write and write and write until you find your voice and you find the writing style that feels most natural to you. So I'm constantly telling writers, just practice, just keep writing. I know some of it's going to be bad, but that's how you learn.
Yeah, and to double back on Pro Writing Aid too, because I use that for my grammar and everything. Doing it over and over again on my manuscripts, I've actually improved my writing because I know like my crutch words. So like in the first draft now, when I see a crutch word, I'm like, delete, because Pro Writing Aid is going to get me that one. So it's definitely good to practice. So do you have any writing exercises or prompts that you would recommend to your readers of this book to improve their craft?
Well, if you're looking specifically to improve your craft or your creativity, I always tell writers, think about what triggers your passion and what triggers your creativity. I know some people who feel the most creative and get the most, ideas through reading. I know people who feel inspired by artwork, TV. For me, it's music. When I listen to music, that's what, that music for me works as a writing prompt. I will listen to a song and see a story unfold in my mind. So what I do is I create a writing playlist. I have a playlist of 500 songs, and I will just cycle through it, and it'll help me generate ideas for, my next story. And then if I'm writing a particular book, I will create a playlist for that book. And, for example, I have a playlist for the Savior's Champion. And in that playlist, I've got songs that pertain to individual scenes within that book. So if you ever are struggling, with coming up with ideas, or if you're looking for exercises or prompts, obviously you can find writing prompts online. But I find that if you want something that's less regimented and more free flowing with your creativity, find what specifically triggers your passion and creativity. If you're looking for exercises that improve your grammar, like I said, Pro Writing Aid is a really great option. There's also Grammarly. I prefer Pro Writing Aid personally, but they're comparable. If you're looking to improve your writing skills overall, enlist critique partners, enlist beta readers. You're going to learn so much from others. And I didn't know what filter words were until I had a critique partner, you only know as much as you know. And when you mingle with other writers in the community and you enlist other writers who are at a comparable skill level, but maybe have skills in different areas than you're going to learn so much, and it's going to have such a major effect on your overall craft. But like I said, nothing is going to benefit your writing more than practice.
What is one piece of writing advice you wish you knew earlier in your career that you'd like to share with everyone?
The number one piece of writing advice, and I know it's a quote that floats around the internet all the time, but it's so true, is write what you want to read. Just write the story that you want to read. A lot of people are embarrassed to do that because maybe they want to write a horror story and they're like, oh, but what if my family thinks I'm crazy? Or they want to write romance and they're like, oh, but what if people think I'm cheesy? And no, first of all, no one cares. No one's paying attention. So many people try to write a book, and so many people don't end up finishing. So at least from my experience, when I told people I was writing a book, everyone was like, okay, yeah, sure. No one cares, So you might as well not worry about their judgments and opinions. Because they're not paying attention. And even if they are paying attention, who cares? Writing the book you want to read is the best piece of advice, because if you want to read it, there is probably an audience for it. You're not so niche and unique that you are the only person in the world who wants to read a book like this. So if this is a story you want to read, there is a built-in target audience ready to gobble it up. And Additionally, if you want to read it, you're probably going to be very passionate about that story. And it's important to be passionate about what you write, because there are going to be moments in the writing process where you do not want to write. There are going to be moments that are really boring, moments that are tedious. There are going to be moments where you get sick of the story or it's really difficult. And if you are not passionate about that story, those are prime locations to quit. Those are prime locations to be like, I don't care. I'm not bothering with this anymore. But if you're passionate about that story, it's going to help encourage you to push through and to get past that tedious moment onto the exciting stuff. Honestly, that is the best piece of advice. And it's one that I wish I had sooner, because I've always wanted to write, or I love reading romance. And that was something I always wanted to write, but I always felt like I had to make it a subplot, because I thought, oh my gosh, people are going to judge me if I write romance. They're going to think that I'm cheesy or whatever. And then I did more research and learned that romance is the #1 most popular fiction genre by a landslide. And so not only were my, thoughts and opinions untrue, even if there are people who think romance is cheesy, it doesn't matter, because there's a million more people who are gobbling up those books. And just writing what I want to read is a smart business decision, because it happens to be an extremely popular genre.
And that's always a good thing.
Exactly.
So do you have any plans in the future to write another nonfiction book?
Absolutely. My audience has already requested a book specifically on writing characters. I have a chapter on writing characters in Shut Up and Write the Book, but I, just gave the basic overview. If I were to do a deep dive into writing characters, again, that would be a 1,000-page book with including everything from Shut Up and Write the Book. So I do plan to write a book all about writing characters that's more of a deeper dive and just focuses on different character types and how to craft them. I'd also like to write a book about marketing and publishing, since marketing is one of my strong suits in terms of the business side of the writing industry. So a lot of people have been requesting that. So don't worry, it's coming eventually, one day.
I love that. Usually people are really hush-hush about it, so I'm glad to know it's coming.
Well, it's not in the works yet, but it's in the noodle.
So what are your upcoming projects that you'd like to share with all of us?
Well, now that I've released my first nonfiction book, I'm diving back into fiction. I have the first 2 books of the Savior series out already. It's The Savior's Champion and The Savior's Sister. It's a dark fantasy romance series. And I'm in the process of writing their sequel, which is The Savior's Army. And I'm hoping to release that this year. If not, it'll be early next year. I'm very, 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 very excited about it. So stay tuned. If you've read The Savior's Champion and The Savior's Sister, don't worry, the sequel's coming. And if you haven't read The Savior's Champion and Savior's Sister, get on it, because the sequel's coming.
Yeah, my copies I can't ever turn right there.
Yeah, I always turn wrong, but yay, thank you.
That's awesome. So where can everyone find you and learn more about your work and upcoming projects?
The easiest place to find me is YouTube. My channel is Writing with Jenna Moreci, or you can just do youtube.com/Jenna Moreci. That's Moreci. I'm also on Instagram and TikTok at Jenna Moreci. I'm on Facebook at author Jenna Moreci. And of course, you can check out my website, which is, wait for it, jennamoreci.com. And my books are available wide, which means they're available at all major retailers, Barnes & Noble, Nook, Amazon, of course, Google Play, and they're available in ebook, paperback, hardback, and audiobook.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I wish you the best of luck in your future books.
Thank you so much. It was an honor to be here.
Thank you so much, Jenna, for being on my channel. You have such amazing advice and you're so fun to chat with. If you're interested in checking out Shut Up and Write the Book, I will put all of the links to buy in the description box below, along with Jenna's YouTube channel that you can subscribe to today. And if you enjoyed this video, do give it a big thumbs up, hit that subscribe button and the little notification bell next to it so you know the next time I upload, and I'll see you soon.